Hello everyone, this is Yours Trivia, and welcome back to another episode of the First Emperor of Wait, Let's Talk Lore series, as we continue with episode 2, titled The Child Prodigy. Now we foreshadow Cao Pi's biggest competition for heir following Cao Ang's death in 197 by name-dropping Cao Chong at the end of last episode, and in this episode, we will look at the burnt but short-lived life of Cao Chong, as for a time, it seemed he was destined to become Cao Cao's heir. Now, as you might be thinking, when Cao Ang was killed in 197, Cao Chong was just 1 year old. So how could he become a threat for Cao Pi, who was already 10 by the time? But by the time Cao Chong was 5, it was said that he already had the intelligence and maturity of an adult. And as a matter of fact, in 201, when Sun Quan paid tribute for the first time to Cao Cao and the Han Imperial Court, following his brother's assassination, one particular gift captivated Cao Cao's family, as Sun Quan had shipped a full-grown Asian elephant as an exotic animal to Cao Cao. Intrigued by the creature, Cao Cao asked his officers if anyone can figure out how much this beast weighed, and when no one could provide a plan, Cao Chong, who was just 5 at this time, suggested that they could place the elephant on a big boat, mark the water line on the boat, then remove the elephant and add goods to the boat until the water line matched up, then simply weigh the goods separately, and we will know the weight of the elephant. And apart from this Archimedes water displacement moment with the elephant, Cao Chong had another run-in with tribute animals in a less famous story, as there was a particular type of wild rooster known to dance when it saw its own beautiful feathers reflected back in the water. But unfortunately, during a feast, when Cao Cao wanted to show off the rooster, but with no water sources nearby, the rooster simply would not dance. So Cao Chong came to the rescue again, as he brought out a mirror and placed it in front of the rooster, and looking at its own reflection in the bronze mirror, the rooster started to dance until it exhausted itself to death, which, much like the elephant weighing story, both of these instances will leave behind famous Chinese idioms that are still used today, one being called Cao Chong Cheng Xiang, which literally translates to Cao Chong weighing the elephant, and Gu Ying Zi Lian, for the rooster story, as this phrase depicts the sadness and loneliness one experiences when admiring oneself in the mirror. Now, aside from these run-ins with tribute animals demonstrating his wit, Cao Chong also demonstrated compassion at a young age, as when he had heard that the stable master was worried about being punished as mice had gnawed and damaged the leather on Cao Cao's pride saddle, he approached the stable master and told him to wait 3 days and then turn himself into Cao Cao. Then Cao Chong took out a knife and stabbed holes on his undergarment in the shape of mouse bites, as then he raced to see his father, while giving off a sad facade. And seeing his favorite son looking down, Cao Cao asked Cao Chong what was bothering him, to which Cao Chong answered that he was worried that bad luck would befall on him, as he had discovered mouse bites on his undergarment, and recalling hearing of superstition stating that mouse bites on the clothing brings bad luck to the owner. Hoping to give his son the peace of mind, Cao Cao quickly laughed off his concerns as he dismissed it as nonsense. So 3 days later, when the stable master threw himself at Cao Cao's feet and confessed that under his watch, the mice had bitten and damaged Cao Cao's pride saddle, Cao Cao chose to play it off cool, as he did not want to go back on his earlier statement to calm down Cao Chong. So instead of being punished, the stable master was pardoned, on the grounds that it was not his fault, as the mice problem is so widespread that they had been able to bite even Cao Chong's undergarment. So it is no wonder that they would go after the leather on the saddle, which is stationary inside the stable. And while you might not realize it, had Cao Chong not approached Cao Cao about the mouse bites on his clothes, it would have been a certain death for the stable master, as neglecting the maintenance of military supplies such as Cao Cao's saddle, leading to damages, was a crime punishable by death at the time. And beyond saving the stable master from such a cruel punishment, Cao Chong was recorded to have saved many others in similar manners, which gave him a reputation for compassion among Cao Cao's officers, as Cao Cao himself would also praise Cao Chong many times for his actions, while hinting to his court that Cao Chong would be the perfect heir to succeed him. So while Cao Chong was growing up under this heaps of praise, Cao Pi continued to dutifully accompany his father on his campaigns. And although there were no notable records of Cao Pi actually taking part in battle, we do know that following the capture of Ye in 204, Cao Pi did rush headfirst into the Yuan estate, where Lady Zhen would catch his eyes, as the wife of Yuan Xi, who was also 4 years older than the then 17-year-old Cao Pi, ended up becoming his first wife. Now, despite it being her second marriage, Lady Zhen, due to her family background of coming from a very respected Confucian scholar family that produced many grand tutors in the past, and her general upbringing and manners, made her quite popular in the Cao household, as both Cao Cao and Lady Bian were very pleased with their first daughter-in-law. Yet aside from snatching himself a prized wife, Cao Pi didn't do much in these years, as he was still too young to officially hold office. Then came the year 208, which would change everything, as a plague gripped the land. First, Guo Jia would die of it on the return trip from the Wuhuan campaign that united the north. Then Cao Chong would die not long after, just as Cao Cao was about to embark on his most important campaign to date against Liu Biao in the Jin province. And while Cao Cao prayed to the heavens to extend the life of his favorite son, the heavens would not answer back, as Cao Chong would pass away in early 208 at just 13 years old. Heartbroken, Cao Cao made sure to give his late son everything he had missed out on his short life, as even though Cao Chong never came of age, he has a recorded style name of Cang Shu, which can have many meanings, but my best guess is that Cang is used in the same manner as it is used in the classic of poetry, which means sadness, while Shu means to express or slowly extend, and combined together, Cang Shu reflected less about Cao Chong and more about Cao Cao's sadness about Cao Chong's passing. And this is also pretty evident in the style names of Cao Cao's other children, as Cao Ang's style name was Zixiu, Cao Pi's style name was Zihuan, Cao Zhang's style name was Ziwen, Cao Zhi's style name was Zijian, and Cao Xiong's style name was Ziwei. So clearly, Cao Chong was special, especially considering the fact that Cao Shuo, who also died in childhood just a few years prior, never got a style name posthumously like in the case of Cao Chong. And in addition to giving Cao Chong a style name posthumously, Cao Cao also wanted to grant him a marriage. While the dead cannot marry the living, there is a Chinese custom of having the dead marry the dead. And at the time, Cao Cao had a subordinate in the Grand Excellency office named Bing Yuan, who happens to have lost a young daughter in the same year. So Cao Cao approached him, asking him if it's alright if they host a marriage for the dead, and have her buried alongside Cao Chong as his wife. Bing Yuan, being a Confucian scholar himself, refused on the ground that his daughter should be buried with his clan, and that the traditional custom of marriage for the dead is for the superstitious, as it has long been shunned by Confucianism as an uncivilized practice, much like the live burials of the past. And seeing that Bing Yuan was not willing, Cao Cao turned to his lovely daughter-in-law, Lady Zhen, as her clan also happened to have a young girl pass away that year. And being the good daughter-in-law, Lady Zhen worked it out with her clan, as Cao Chong married this other Lady Zhen posthumously, as the two of them were buried together. And even after the funeral, Cao Cao would not be able to forget his son, as he would promote him posthumously as the lieutenant of cavalry, and eventually as the Marquis of Deng. And once his mother, Lady Huan, had another son in Cao Ju, Cao Ju's first son, Cao Cong, was passed over to Cao Chong to inherit his titles and continue his lines years later. On top of all these posthumous honors, Cao Cao also told Cao Pi after Cao Chong's death that while Cao Chong's death is a personal tragedy for myself, it is the luckiest thing to have ever happened to you. Of course, future conspiracy theorists have used this line to hint that Cao Pi had been the one to kill Cao Chong, or at least the one who had the most motivation. But there is absolutely no historical evidence of this, especially since Cao Cao also had Cao Chong's best friend, who was also a child prodigy, killed not long after Cao Chong's death. And when asked by Cao Pi if Zhou Buyi, the child prodigy, could be spared, Cao Cao answered that not only does he remind him too much of Cao Chong, but he was also too smart for you to control in the future, thus he must die. And I think this pretty much shows that Cao Cao did not suspect Cao Pi, and was actually already paving the way for him right after Cao Chong's death. But Cao Pi would not be named heir for quite some time, as very soon a new contender in Cao Zhi, who was Cao Pi's little brother from the same mother, Lady Bian, would soon grow up to become Cao Cao's new favorite son, as it will become the topic of our next episode. So as we end our episode here, hopefully you all enjoyed it enough to leave a like to support the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!